Welcome, Virgo. Um, there is something someone has been holding back from you, not because it is not true, not because they have not known it was true. They have known for longer than the silence between you would suggest is reasonable, but because saying it out loud, placing it in the shared air where it becomes real in a way that private knowing does not, has required something of them that they have been slowly, privately, without announcement, assembling. The assembling is complete, or close enough to complete that the distance between where they are and the moment of the saying has collapsed to something that can be measured not in seasons but in days. And what they are about to say, the specific, honest, I have been holding this and I cannot hold it any longer confession, is something that the Virgo who has been quietly wondering, quietly waiting, quietly managing the uncertainty of not knowing has perhaps stopped expecting to hear. It is coming anyway. Take what belongs to you today, Virgo. What resonates, let it reach past the analytical defense before the defense has a chance to assess whether the reaching is warranted. What does not, release it gently. But for those of you who felt something catch in the chest, in the specific place where hope and the management of hope coexist, in the particular tension that Virgo knows so well, this reading is for you. Let me speak about what a confession is in the specific sense that this reading is using the word, not the confession of wrongdoing, the other kind, the confession of feeling the specific, courageous, I am placing this in the open where it cannot be taken back act of saying the true thing about what one person feels for another, the kind that requires more than the feeling itself, that requires the specific and sometimes rare combination of certainty about what is felt and courage about the saying of it, and the specific readiness to stand in the full exposure of having said it, regardless of what the response produces. Soft sigh. This person has arrived at all three. Not simultaneously, the certainty came first, long ago. The readiness came second, more recently. And the courage has been the last to form the specific, daily assembled quality that is approaching now the threshold of completion, of sufficiency, of enough to produce the saying rather than another day of the not saying that has been the default of this situation for longer than either of you chose. You thought you would never hear it. That is the honest description of where you are, and Spirit is acknowledging it without judgment. Because Virgo, whose relationship with hope is complicated by the specific and earned wariness of a sign that has been disappointed enough times to know the specific cost of hoping fully for something that does not materialize, has been managing this particular hope carefully, keeping it at the size that feels survivable, not extinguishing it. The hoping has been present quietly throughout, but containing it to the size that does not devastate if the confession never comes. The containing is about to become unnecessary. That is the specific and significant thing. Spirit is pressing forward today. The confession is coming. And the Virgo who has been managing the hope at a survivable size is going to be asked to receive something at the full size, not the managed size. The actual size of what has been felt and what is now being said, and that receiving the full unmanaged nothing between you and the full weight of it receiving is the specific work this reading is preparing you for. Now, hear what is forming in the person who is about to speak, because their voice has been assembling itself in the private hours and needs to reach you before its formal arrival. Virgo, I have something to tell you that I have been trying to find the right moment for, and I have arrived at the understanding that there is no right moment. That the right moment is a construction I have been using to defer something that needs no more deferring. That the saying of it has been ready for longer than the waiting has been honest. I am in love with you. Not in the exploratory, I think this might be what this is sense of someone who is still assessing what they feel. In the arrived at, sat with, tested against, time and found unchanged sense of someone who has known this for long enough that saying it now is not a revelation, but a long overdue honesty. I have known for a while, and I have not said it for reasons that made more sense to me when I was making them than they make to me now, looking at the time the not saying has taken and the cost the silence has produced on both sides. Woof. I was afraid of what saying it would require of me. Not of rejection, though the possibility of rejection was present, of the full exposure of having said the true thing and standing in it, of being known to feel what I feel in the specific and complete way that a confession makes unavoidable, of handing you information about my interior that changes the balance between us in ways I could not fully predict or control. And Virgo and I say this because I think you will understand it. I am someone who does not easily relinquish control of my own exposure, who manages carefully what is visible and what is not, who finds the specific vulnerability of saying the true thing about feeling more difficult than most things the world has asked of me. I am saying it anyway. Because the alternative, another day of you not knowing, another day of the silence producing in you whatever story the silence produces, is no longer something I can justify. Because what I feel is too real to continue being treated as something requiring indefinite management, and because you deserve to know. Simply that you deserve to know. Oh, Virgo, feel that. Not with the analytical part, with the other part. The one that existed before the analysis became necessary. The quiet, honest, pre-protective part that knows things before the mind has finished assessing whether the knowing is safe. Let what was just said reach that part and notice what it produces there. Because I think what it produces is recognition. Not surprise, Virgo is perceptive enough to have sensed something was there. But recognition, the specific, this is what I was sensing without being able to confirm quality of something that was always true, finally being spoken in the form that makes it real in the shared space rather than only in the private one. Soft sigh. Now I want to speak to you about what receiving this confession asks of you. Because Virgo, receiving a confession genuinely, fully, in the all the way in way the confession deserves, is its own specific challenge. Not because you do not want to receive it, because the receiving requires a quality of openness that your sign has learned through genuine experience to approach carefully, to assess before allowing, to check for structural flaws before accepting the full weight. I want to offer you something today, Virgo. Not an instruction to abandon the discernment, which is one of your greatest gifts, but a reframe of what the discernment is for. The discernment is for distinguishing what is real from what is performed, what is genuine from what is strategic, what holds under examination from what reveals its inadequacy when examined. That is what it was built for. And it is the right tool for this moment. Use it. Apply the discernment to what is being offered. Let it examine the confession for the quality of its genuineness. And what it will find, what the Virgo examination of something real always finds when the thing being examined is actually real, is that it holds, that the certainty in the confession is not performed certainty, but arrived at certainty. That the courage it took to say is evident in the quality of the saying. That the love being confessed has the specific texture of something that has been lived with rather than constructed for the occasion. The discernment will confirm it. And when the discernment confirms something, when the Virgo examination finds genuine structural integrity rather than the performance of it, Virgo can allow the full reception, not the managed, let me not get too far ahead of the evidence reception, the full one, because the evidence, when it is real, warrants the full reception. And this evidence is real. Whew. You thought you would never hear this. The specific, honest, I have been hoping without fully admitting I was hoping quality of someone who has been managing their expectation downward across a period long enough that the original hope is barely visible. Beneath the management, that is where you have been. And it is a reasonable place to have arrived, given the time, given the silence, given the specific quality of uncertainty that has characterized this situation. But the management is about to become unnecessary. The hoping does not need to be managed down anymore, because what was hoped for quietly, carefully, at the survivable size is arriving in the form of a confession from someone who has finally, past all their own resistance, assembled the courage the saying required. And what they are confessing, the love that has been present and private and managed into silence for too long, is the specific and real answer to the specific and real hoping. Let the hope be its full size. For the first time in however long you have been managing it. Not recklessly with the specific discernment informed quality of someone who has confirmed that the evidence warrants the full size, but full, unmanaged, as large as it actually is, which is, I suspect, considerably larger than the survivable size you have been keeping it at. Let it be that large, because What is arriving is large enough to hold it. The confession is coming, Virgo, the one you thought you would never hear, said by someone who has known it was true for a long time and is finally, with everything the assembling of courage required, ready to say it to the person it has always been about, which is you, specifically with the full unmanaged, I am placing this in the open quality of something that cannot be taken back once said and is being said anyway. Because you deserve to know, because the silence has gone on long enough, because the love is real and real things eventually, through whatever path they must travel, find their expression. Soft sigh. Be ready, Virgo, not with the armor, with the open, discerning, completely yourself readiness of someone who is finally going to hear what the hoping was always pointing toward, who is going to receive a confession they thought they would never hear, and who deserves completely, without the Virgo footnotes, to let it land all the way, without the management, as the real, full, genuinely for you thing it actually is. If this reading found you today, if something here named the specific quality of the hoping you have been managing and confirmed that what you hoped for is coming, stay close, subscribe, and come back. Because the story of Virgo finally hearing the confession they thought they would never receive and what becomes possible from there is one worth witnessing all the way through. And the next reading will be there for every step of what the saying makes possible.